Hyrule is a land of magic monsters and cascading waterfalls that practically beg you to drink from them. But just because something looks refreshing doesn't mean it won't send you straight to a throne you don't want to be the king of. All done.
Hey, take it back, please!
Especially if that water's been filtered through thousands of feet of rock and is sitting right next to a puddle of gloom.
Brother,
Right behind me is one of the many still dark water sources found throughout the depths in The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. It's calm and clear of any debris, but it probably was just used as the Yiga clan's personal bath, laundry, and banana peel trash can all at once. So you might think, wow, what a great place to fill a bottle and rehydrate. But where exactly is this water source? Is it downstream from an abandoned mine? Right next to a monster camp? Or was electricity just surging through it for 4 hours straight? Because here's the thing, water in real life, it usually needs infrastructure to be drinkable. But what about in Hyrule? Are they purifying water? Or were the ancient Hyruleans drinking cave water like it's fine wine? Well, my wife and I did months of research into hydrology, water safety, and why you may not want to light a torch down here. Gosh, it's so dark down here. Where's my lighter? Ah, there it is. Yikes. All to figure out if the water in Hyrule's depths is actually safe to drink. But to know that for sure, we had to go on a water quest and document every single body of water in the depths. We divide the depths to match each of Hyrule's 8 regions. Then we track down every river, lake, basin, and pond, basically anywhere someone might think to get a drink of water. And we classified each of them as either green, this is safe to drink, like sacred Zora spring water filtered directly through the goddess's Brita filter and served at just the right temperature. Yellow, it's risky. You might be okay, or you might be running behind those rocks over there for some quick relief. Or red. This is like a 3-day-old gas station burrito washed down with your least favorite sugar-free energy drink level of catastrophe. Trust me, you do not want to go there. By the end of our journey, we will have a fantastic visual map of just how great or horrible the depths water actually is. And if you voted in our community poll a few weeks ago, stick around, because at the very end of the video, we'll reveal the safest drinking water in all of Hyrule's depths. Let's dive right in. We started our journey to the south, below grew desert, an area blissfully shaded from the relentless desert sun. Finally, I get to dress Link in my favorite armor instead of constantly dressing like I'm about to audition for Aladdin on Ice. A whole new... oh my PM10! And unsurprisingly, there isn't much water around here. At least, not under the desert basin. So our first stop? The lake beneath the southern highlands. And at first, it seems perfect. Still, cool water that becomes darker and darker as it goes down. But that clarity, well, it might be a trap in more ways than one. Because clear here just means there's no floating dirt or algae. Not that there aren't other less visible dangers lurking. But curiosity got the best of us, and we wanted to know exactly how deep this pool really was. Because, you know, scientists. So we turned on our free cam and... oh my gosh! It's only 20 feet deep? Wait, what? This is incredible. Look how awesome this water is. It appears so deep by its texture on the surface, but in reality, it's a glorified swimming pool. Well done, Nintendo. Holy potatoes, this is amazing. And after that revelation, we started looking around for any hidden dangers that might contaminate the water. And the first thing we noticed wandering the depths, incredibly detailed textured stone and massive stalactites. These beautiful ceiling formations actually tell us a lot. Mainly that all of Hyrule is sitting on carbonate rock. And no, I'm not talking about the stuff that Han Solo was put into. This rock is more likely limestone than a frozen bounty hunter living room decoration. Now, there are other minerals that can form stalactites, but they're rare and they don't look like what we're seeing here. Limestone is a sedimentary rock formed over millions of years. It builds up from dead sea creatures, sand, and shells setting on the ocean floor. Those layers get compressed into rock, and over time, they're pushed up onto land. So, how does that relate to these stalactites? Well, calcium carbonate, or limestone, is highly dissolvable in water that's even the slightest bit acidic, like rain. So, when it rains in Hyrule, that slightly acidic water flows through the stone, slowly dissolving it over time. Then, when that water reaches a cave, that calcium carbonate falls out of solution, one drop at a time, depositing the calcium carbonate at the tip of each stalactite. And over thousands of years, these incredible cave structures form. And what's more, limestone is known for its karst topography. Gesundheit! Karst topography is basically a system of Swiss cheese-like holes and hidden caves formed as rainwater dissolves the limestone. And that's exactly what we see in Hyrule. Okay, but this is a water quality video. Why does any of this even matter? Well, limestone doesn't just form caves, it also dissolves into lakes, ponds, and groundwater, making it hard. What? Hard water? How can water be hard? It's literally a liquid. Well, hard water is any water with dissolved minerals, especially calcium and magnesium. And if you've got hard water at home, you probably live somewhere with carbonate rock. But technically, that doesn't make it undrinkable. Sure, it might taste a little off, and over time it'll clog up your pipes real good, but this is what the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, calls a secondary drinking water standard issue, meaning fixing it is optional, but highly recommended. And another thing that the EPA recommends is that you like and subscribe below. Okay, maybe they didn't officially say that, but we did get some very nice comments from them in our last video, so I'm just saying. But today we're focused on not the secondary, but primary water drinking standards. Because when you are trying to survive the harsh world of Zelda, you probably don't care if the water tastes a little funky. You just want to drink. Primary drinking water standards are legally enforceable regulations set by the EPA that protects public health by limiting harmful contaminants. So, is there any way limestone could actually turn water into a public health hazard? Well, not directly. But remember that karst, gesundheit topography we talked about? Well, all of those hidden caves act like a larder for bacteria, hiding away dead things and animal droppings. Then all those Swiss cheese-like holes in the dissolving rock can pipe bacteria straight down into the depths. So, does that mean all the water down here is just chock full of bacteria? No, not necessarily. Hard water can actually have both pros and cons when it comes to bacteria growth. One of the benefits is that calcium carbonate acts as a strong buffer when it's dissolved. That means it can absorb or release hydrogen ions, helping keep the water's pH stable. And unfortunately, that's actually great for bacteria living in the water. But there is a slight problem for the bacteria. Those dissolved calcium ions love to bind with phosphates. And phosphorus is essential. It's a key nutrient for bacteria and basically all life. So if dissolved limestone is pulling it out of the water, you end up with a much more nutrient-poor environment for bacterial growth. That's bad for bacteria and great for water quality. And that applies to almost everything in the depths. With just a few exceptions, everything in the depths is going to have hard water. But that still isn't enough to give us a rating. Like we said before, you can drink hard water without much of a concern. It'll just taste a little funky. So what else is around here that might affect the water quality? Well, if you've spent any time in the depths, you probably know the answer. Giant mushroom trees. Oh my gosh, we're gonna need a bigger pizza. This lake under the Gerudo Highlands is surrounded by giant mushrooms and immediately puts up a lot of red flags for us. First, mushrooms produce spores to reproduce, and in a closed cave environment, those spores are going to end up in the water. Since we don't see giant algae blooms, slime layers, or clouds of fungal growth floating on the surface, we have to assume something else is going on. Over time, the bacteria in the water likely consumed most of the available oxygen, and that creates an environment that limits most visible growth. If you've watched our original Water and Hyrule video, you know bacteria need oxygen to break down food. And once all that oxygen is used up, well, most bacteria can't survive. We call this environment anoxic, and that's bad for water quality. Because while most bacteria die off, some of the most dangerous bacteria remain, and they thrive in that low oxygen environment. That's where botulism, tetanus, and gangrene come in. So if mushroom spores are landing in the water, they're still providing food for certain bacteria, even if the water looks clear of any debris. And that's not even the worst part. Mushroom spores can contain mycotoxins, special compounds mushrooms produce for defense. And if those spores aren't fully broken down, those heat-stable toxins can persist in water. Which means if you boil it and then drink it, and drink a lot of it, well, you find yourself without any functioning organs shortly after. Yikes.
Oh no!
And this is why I prefer Hyrule's kingdom to Mario's Mushroom Kingdom. It's just organ failure everywhere over there. They got gigantic mushroom trees. They got mushrooms you eat to grow big. I mean, heck, even their local populace is likely wearing a mushroom or is part mushroom. Literally, it's Mushroom Kingdom there. And maybe that is what we should be calling the depths now, since there are so many mushroom trees here. Wait, is this old Mushroom Kingdom? Anyway, we're gonna go ahead and give this first lake a red rating. As we continued our journey through the Gerudo region, we came upon a small pond, and luckily, we do have one good indicator for water quality. This pond is full of fireflies, and that's actually a good thing. While fireflies aren't a direct indicator of water quality, they can tell us something about the environment around the water's edge. Many species spend their larval stage in the mud and in the vegetation near ponds and streams. So when the local environment becomes polluted with heavy metals or other contaminants, or if oxygen levels and available nutrients drop, those larval habitats start to fail. And that means fewer fireflies. That doesn't mean that there are no bacteria living nearby, but we don't see any major chemical pollutants. If it's bacteria, you could probably boil this water and be safe. See, boiling water kills almost everything in the water. Bacteria, molds, and parasites would be all neutralized. But boiling water doesn't fix everything. Heavy metals, pH, and those heat-resistant mycotoxins we talked about earlier, they would be completely unaffected. So, this pond, it's gonna get a yellow rating from us. Drink it at your own risk. The Geology region only has one other major body of water, and that's not surprising. It is a desert after all. A little bit more surprising is it's not underneath Geology Town, which has a ton of water. Man, maybe the developers just kind of forgot they put in a, artesian well there. But if we go to the north, in the highlands, there's another massive lake, this time with more signs of life. You see, throughout most of the depths, the water is still, quiet, and undisturbed. But in a few places, we do see signs of activity. Specifically, Yiga clan members flying around and refusing to share their bananas. I want to be mighty! Give me banana!
Nope.
While the first lake was undisturbed, here, the situation is quite different. The monsters are right on the shoreline, and there's even a Yiga clan camp in the middle of the water. Which, hey, this is some S-tier decorating here. I really love the lantern look, with all the mushroom trees and hanging talismans. Maybe Master Koga should be less of a ninja master and more of a home decorator. I'm actually really liking this vibe. Though I think his Airbnb here isn't going to be very profitable, there are no beds. Also, anytime we see animals or highlands near water, we have a few concerning questions. Like, where are the islanders, relieving themselves? A quick investigation shows there are no bathrooms, porta potties, or any obvious facilities for relief on the islands. Not even a small pot that might contain some ninja night soil. And with no rain to help nature cycle it back in, what happens on shore mostly stays on shore. But unfortunately, sewage isn't the only potential hazard when people live near water. You have to ask other questions like, where are they bathing? Where do they do the dishes? Where are they throwing their banana peels during their afternoon boat rides? If the answer to any of those questions is the lake, then we have a big bacteria problem. Anytime biomatter is introduced to water, bacteria will start growing. But hold on, there might be some good news here, because the water here is clear of any debris. And that's mostly because we're not seeing large bacterial biofilms or algae blooms on the surface. But there might be a reason for that. See, the shores are all lined with giant ferns. And if they're anything like the ferns we know in the real world, then these plants are actually very effective at cleaning things up. Ferns are often a pioneer species. That means they can survive in rocky, low nutrient environments where plants struggle to take hold. Because of that, they're incredibly good at absorbing nitrates and phosphates from soil and water. So why does any of that matter? Well, nitrates and phosphates are what we use in fertilizer. They're essential nutrients for all living things, including bacteria. So if these giant ferns are doing their job, they could be acting like a natural filtration system, removing the very nutrients that many bacteria would need in order to thrive, including any that might be eyeing that banana peel as a snack. Is that 100% guaranteed? No. But it would help reduce the contamination from older contributions to the lake. And it also might help explain why the water here isn't that murky. Ferns, though, do come with a downside. They can produce a lot of spores. So while they temporarily pull nutrients out of the water and soil, come spore season, a lot of that material goes right back in. In other words, what gets taken up goes up and eventually comes back down. Luckily for us though, unlike mushrooms, these spores aren't toxic. So this is more of an allergy risk than a public health hazard. Even with ferns helping clean things up, however, it's hard to be sure the monsters or even the Yiga are behaving themselves and not bathing in the lake. So we're gonna give this water a red rating. I would not drink it. As we continue north, our water quest took us below the icy region of Hebra. And surprisingly though, it's not cold here in the depths, like at all. Which might be why the Yiga moved here too. Man, those guys really get around. And despite all that snow up top that should be feeding the water into the depths, there is only one lake here. And immediately, we're off to a bad start. Because just like in Gerudo Highlands, there are pollution problems when people are living near water. Luckily, it's not raining here though. So assuming they are keeping their waste out of the water, it might be okay. But those electric fences, they can't be good, right? I mean, they have to be doing something really weird to the water. Well, we know that electricity is bad for water quality if you're swimming in it. But what if you're just drinking it? Well, when high voltage electricity runs through water, it can break the water molecules apart. This is through a process called electrolysis, and it splits water into hydrogen and oxygen. See, when water splits, it forms hydrogen ions, H+, which makes one region of the water more acidic. It also makes hydroxide ions, OH-, which makes one region of the water more basic. And that doesn't just mess with the water's pH. It can also force dissolved limestone out of the water. The anode is the positively charged side of the circuit, attracting all those negative ions called anions. It's basically the dark side, attracting negative ions only to destroy them and steal their electrons for electrical current. Ultimate power! Except, well, you don't get thrown from a 100-story building on the planet Coruscant. Luckily, when OH- loses an electron, it forms oxygen gas. And the other side? That's the cathode. This is the good side of the force. It attracts the positive H+ cations and gives them extra electrons. This stabilizes them into nice, happy, neutral hydrogen atoms. So basically, all that chemistry tells us that one side is going to be acidic, and wherever the current is grounded is going to be basic. But is this going to make all the water undrinkable? Well, in the short term, probably not. But in the long term, it's a different story. See, electricity kicks out that limestone buffer, which means the acids and bases will start to build up. And if the makeshift wires stay in the water long enough, those acidic conditions can start to cause a reaction. Acid is particularly good at breaking down metals. So any lead or copper here, or even minerals in the surrounding stone like zonite, could start to leach into the water. And if the battery is affected by the acid, well, we can't say what the Yiga batteries are made of, but in the real world, everything that humans have ever used to store chemical energy has been, well, bad for drinking. Think like lead and lithium. You get the idea. Luckily, the Yiga probably haven't been around for too long, so the whole lake might not be contaminated. If you're near the wire, drinker beware. I mean, you should probably not be anywhere near it anyway because, you know. But if you're further away by the shore, it's probably a 50-50 shot. And if the ferns here are pulling their weight, the biological load might make this a yellow rating. But add the 50-50 chance of heavy metals, and this is sliding into a red rating. Man, the water has not been great so far down here, and I'm getting really thirsty. Do you think maybe Alden will turn things around? Well, if you watched part 1 of this adventure, then you know the volcanic area might not be great. Actually getting thirsty. It's like I think it's like an effect. You start talking about being thirsty and you eventually get thirsty, right? But before we get there, we made a stop at the lake to the west. And already this lake is looking quite different. Usually in the depths, the water is pretty clear of debris and just reveals some weirdly textured stone at the bottom. But this is the only water in all the depths that has underwater plants. This lake actually has grass growing along the bottom. But is that grass better or worse? Well, underwater plants can act like an even more extreme version of those giant ferns we just saw. Aquatic grasses function like natural filters for dirt and toxins in the water. It also sucks up nitrates and phosphates from the water as well. And that leaves behind a clearer but much more nutrient-limited environment, which makes large algae blooms and thick biofilms less likely to develop. And on top of that, these plants produce oxygen through photosynthesis. And as we know, oxygen is great for water quality. But here's the catch. Eventually, plants die, and when they do, they become food for bacteria and other decomposers. Not to mention, the water would probably start to take on a strong grass tea flavor. And look, I like my matcha latte every now and then, but yeah, I don't think I would be caught drinking the Depths matcha latte special anytime soon. Especially if the Yiga are living at the other end of the teacup. And there are no bathrooms or trash cans in sight. So this place we are going to give a yellow rating. Beware the Yiga matcha latte special. And that's probably the best Eldon has to offer. Because next, we're moving into the volcanic area. And you might be surprised to learn that there's only one body of water beneath Death Mountain. And from the looks of it, its location wasn't accidental, but intentional. This doesn't seem like a natural pool. It looks like a deliberately engineered structure for forging and refining metal. It's hard to say how exactly the ancient Hyruleans might have used it. But if we had to guess, this pool of water strongly resembles a split-depth quench tank. Now, stick with me here, because this structure is super cool, or hot, but you get the idea. Quenching is a process to harden metal through rapid cooling. When metal is heated, probably by using all that nearby lava, the metal's internal crystal structure starts to melt. This allows metal atoms like iron and carbon atoms to mix and mingle. After heating, if steel or other metals cool slowly, carbon atoms have time to move out of the way. That allows a smoother, more flexible iron matrix to form. But when quenching metal, the temperature drops so quickly that the carbon gets locked into place before it can even rearrange itself. And that creates a much more rigid and spiky internal structure that doesn't bend or slide easily. And this pool definitely could have been a quench tank, with a shallow end for quenching small items and a deep end for vertically quenching large machine parts. More interestingly, the 3 ramps leading the pool actually support this idea as well, because historically, ramped quenching tanks were used to overcome something called the Leidenfrost effect. Johann Leidenfrost was an 18th century German scientist who studied how water behaves at extremely high temperatures. He noticed something strange. On a moderately hot pan, water sizzles and evaporates quickly. But on a much hotter surface, droplets don't immediately boil away. Instead, they skate around on a thin layer of steam, almost like they're floating. I bet he developed his theory while making perfectly good schnitzel. I do love myself a really good schnitzel. When water hits an ultra-hot surface, it flashes into steam almost instantly. This creates a layer of vapor underneath the droplet. And the same thing happens in a quench tank. When a super hot piece of metal is dropped in, a vapor-like pillow can form around it almost immediately. The problem is that steam layer acts like insulation. It slows down the direct contact between the metal and the cold water, which reduces how quickly the heat can be pulled out. And that's not good for forming all those super hard, spiky crystals. The solution? Agitation. And no, I don't mean all those times you disturbed those bokoblins with a Lionel bow ×5 equipped with bomb arrows. I mean agitating the water and mixing it up with the material. If it's a small piece of metal, you can just kind of swirl it around. But if it's part of a train or a major piece of machinery, maybe even a Zonai technology thing, well, you can roll it down a ramp. And that's really cool. We actually see that in older factories like the Erie Railworks. So a split-depth water tank with ramps like this could very well have been used by the ancient Gorons as a quenching system. And the multiple ramps may not just be decorative. They could actually be used to increase efficiency. We see similar multi-lane designs in modern continuous flow heat treatment facilities. The workflow is typically split into 3 stages: heating, soaking, and removal of the cooled pieces. That way, the process never has to stop or bottleneck. So even if this wasn't used strictly for quenching, it almost certainly was part of some kind of industrial manufacturing system. Okay, cool, or hot, whatever. So what does that mean for water quality? Well, not good things, like at all. When metals are heat treated, they form flaky black crust called scale, and this scale often explodes off into the oil or water. That means that the bottom of this pool is probably full of ancient scale from all of that quenching. Forged scale is primarily made of iron, and iron loves to oxidize. So over time, that scale would consume dissolved oxygen in the water as it rusts, making the perfect environment for harmful anaerobic bacteria. But forged scale isn't just iron. It often contains impurities like manganese, chromium, and even nickel. And over time, these materials can leach into the water, making it a toxic chemical cocktail. That's a red rating. In fact, Link shouldn't even be swimming in this. Between sharp metal fragments and dissolved heavy metals in the water, this is the kind of environment where even minor cuts could become a serious problem. And after that train wreck, we headed north to Akala to escape the heat. The first major lake in the region is actually split into 2 sections. In the east, we can see the Ascension Tower, which I can just imagine Rauru thought was like a hilarious joke. Could anyone actually use Ascension other than Rauru? Or was he just like popping up through floors like it was a huge practical joke? But does this tower affect the water quality here? On its own, probably not. Huh. Though, you know, I do wonder where this Ascension Tower goes. Well, I mean, there's only one way to find out. I am a scientist after all, always looking for new discovery. Hello, come here often?
Why are you in my floor?
Well, your shoes are untied.
Huh?
Bomb arrows, go! Once again, the Yiga clan seem to have taken over part of a lake. but at least they are probably keeping their business up the tower. And this time, there aren't many plants around here. So the eastern side of the lake here is relatively clean in terms of organic input. The west side of the lake doesn't look nearly as nice. The Yiga are here as well, but instead of staying up in their ivory tower, they're right down here at the water level. And that means, sir, what are you doing? I mean, I get you're jamming out on the lake, but are you aware you're not, like, moving or going anywhere? And how are you moving your arms like that? Oh, that's gotta hurt. Oh, gosh, weird. Whatever. Link, get the bomb arrows. As I was saying about the Yiga of the lake, you know that means if they're here, that means there's a potential for banana peels and potty pollution. And on top of that, their structures are made of wood, so prolonged submersion could also mean slow decomposition and rotting material entering the water. And this area is also incredibly dark, and the depths away from the light of the Yiga or a light root, it's basically pitch black. And that means no UV sterilization. UV radiation comes from the sun and plays an important role in naturally disinfecting surface water. That's because UV radiation can damage DNA, which is harmful to our skin and often lethal to bacteria. But down the depths, there is no sunlight reaching the water at all, except maybe the light roots when Link flips the light switch. So if bacterial buildup does occur, there's no UV exposure helping to break it down or keep populations in check. Sure, the east half of this lake looks okay, but the west, it's pretty questionable. We're gonna have to give this a yellow rating. Our next bit of water was a little northward, and as we traveled north, we ran directly into a wall. And if you haven't unlocked a particular light route, you have a long, annoying journey ahead of you to this water. I don't think anyone is coming here to have a drink, because it's an absolute pain in the butt. But once you're here in the Lome depths of Labyrinth, is there even any water you could drink? Looking around, this water does look pretty perfect. There is no plant or animal life here to contaminate it. We can see stalactites on the ceiling, so we know we have hard water that is very pH stable. But there is a problem. This water is under the ocean, and we know that the water is coming through the ceiling because we can see those cave formations. That means the water is likely salty. And, well, salt water can dissolve much more limestone than fresh water, which means this water could be salty and significantly harder. That's a huge red flag. Salt water is not tasty.
I don't need
Want.
it. I don't
Want.
need it. I definitely don't need
Want.
it. I need it!
Next, our journey took us to the wellspring of power. Oh man, waterfalls. Now it's starting to feel a little bit like the overworld again. In fact, the water here is likely flowing straight down from the overworld from the column of rock up above. And if that's true, we're already starting with a high quality source of water. If you've watched our original Water of Hyrule video, you'll know the Spring of Power produces some top tier Hylian spring water. Sure, it's probably a little harder by the time it reaches down here, but fast moving water generally has less contact time with surrounding rock, which can reduce how much calcium it picks up along the way. So, is there anything down here that would mess things up? Well, the waterfall is obviously a great start. Waterfalls introduce a ton of oxygen. And that's usually good news because oxygen makes it really hard for bad anaerobic bacteria to stick around. It also helps normal bacteria break things down faster and then disappear. And so far, this water looks really clean. But that's when we noticed there's a ton of gloom and monsters nearby. Gloom might actually behave a lot like a group of chemicals called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, or PAHs. These are found in things like petroleum, coal, and other partially burned organic material. PAHs are genotoxic, which means they don't just irritate your skin, they can actually damage your DNA, slowly chipping away at your health like Link's hearts in the game. PAHs are shaped like flat little discs, so they can get in between the steps of the DNA ladder. Basically, they wedge themselves into your genetic code and mess with how your body reads it. And as you might imagine, that's a pretty serious level of interference. And that might explain why gloom destroys Link's hearts. And here's the final nail in the coffin of our PAH theory here. PAHs are photosensitive, which means that when they are exposed to sunlight, they break down. That's actually one of the ways nature gets rid of them over time. And what's crazier? This effect works inside of your skin. Okay, but why does this matter for water quality? I mean, the gloom here isn't even touching the water. Well, PAHs don't actually dissolve in water very well. They love fats, oils, and dust. If there are any particles in the air, the gloom could be attaching to the dust and settling in the water. Maybe not enough to hurt Link when he's walking by or swimming, but if there are pH particles in the water, I wouldn't drink it. So maybe the gloom is staying put in its puddle. Or maybe it's floating through the air. Either way, it's enough for us to give this pond a yellow rating. Which sucks, because I really love this waterfall. Ah, Lanayru, home of the ancient Zora. Land of beautiful crystal waters and mine drainage? What? Oh, geez. I thought this was like a problem only the Gorons had. Well, unfortunately for us, the first lake under Lanayru is literally inside of an abandoned mine. Yikes. Now, the chemistry here is quite tricky, because Zonite, I am pretty sure, isn't a real thing. But this wouldn't be the MamaGoron channel if I didn't at least try to find a real-world equivalent or some theory about what it could be. Now, we know Zonite is a powerful energy source, and we know it's a dark gray stone that can be refined into a glowing blue crystal. So, is there anything in the real world that even comes close to that? Well, surprisingly, yes. Raw lithium ore is called spodumene, and that is not actually pure lithium. It's a mixture of lithium, aluminum, and silicate. But when it's refined into lithium, we use it in batteries that power all sorts of things, including your phone that you're probably using to watch my videos right now. Hey, make sure you wash your hands when you're done, okay? Raw spodumene can look like a pretty dull grayish stone, but under the right conditions, it forms beautiful crystals. One variety is called kunzite, and it can show up as these bright blue or purple gems. So if a lake forms in an old lithium mine, would you drink it? Well, I don't know about you, but I surely wouldn't. Even without mining, small amounts of lithium can slowly leach out of the rock and into the water. But once you start mining, well, crushing the rock, kicking up dust, and exposing fresh surfaces speeds up that process a lot. Plus, there are still constructs down here, throwing even more zonite dust into the air. I mean, that's assuming if they're moving.
In small doses, lithium can be used as a mood stabilizer.
In larger doses, it's a powerful neurotoxin.
Now, this is just a theory. Well, you get the idea. But we can't say for sure what zonite actually truly is. But if it is anything like lithium batteries, it isn't good. So, that's a red flag for water quality. Hopefully, Lanayru has something better than mine water to offer. As we continued down the hill, we came upon a series of large ponds. There isn't much going on here, except for a big monster camp right on the shore. Dang, monsters again? We already talked about those guys in our first video. If humans are not good for water quality, then you can probably guess monsters are worse. Red pen! There is no way a camp full of monsters are keeping their mess to themselves. Maybe the next place will be better. Oh, and interestingly, there isn't any water under the Lanayru wetlands. I don't know how they could have standing water up there and not be dripping any of that down into the depths. But there is a pond kind of nearby. And weirdly, there are stalagmites under the water, which means this pond is a relatively recent addition to the depths. See, stalagmites form underneath stalactites. When the water drips down from the ceiling, it leaves calcium on the ceiling. But the rest of the calcium, it forms a little mound below. And these stalagmites are tall, which means the water was dripping here for thousands and thousands of years. And just to be real with y'all, this probably does some funky things to the Zelda timeline. But that is a whole other video. Again, maybe subscribe if you haven't already. We'll now add this one to our list. But if the water were dripping into a pond, the calcium would just stay dissolved. So, we have relatively recent water. Let's see, what else do we have around here? Some giant woody light roots. Oh, there's some rock monsters. That's weird. Do you think those things even poop? I'm just gonna go on a limb and say no. Nothing looks really bad here. I mean, except for those CDI Zelda games someone left down here.
Oh my goodness, this is awful!
Huh. Yuck. But even though nothing looks bad, there also isn't anything that looks particularly good. Is there anything here that can give us an extra clue? Well, actually we do see pitcher plants along one shore. And that's actually really interesting. See, pitcher plants and other carnivorous plants are specially designed to live in places with poor nutrients. Remember how nitrogen and phosphorus are incredibly important for all life? Well, if plants can't get those nutrients from the soil, some of them turn to a different strategy. They hunt. So the fact that we see pitcher plants here and around the water sources in the depths is a big clue that the environment is extremely nutrient poor. And these look a lot like purple pitcher plants, which specialize in limestone wetlands called marl fens. And that actually makes a lot of sense. Remember, limestone lakes are often low in phosphorus. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean that the bacteria can't be around. They might be struggling to find nutrients. But anything a plant can do, they can do better. Bacteria are really pesky. We're gonna call this one another yellow rating. Plants nearby mean dead rotting plants somewhere. Without oxygen and UV to sterilize, it's really hard to be sure anything here is safe. Oh, look! A waterfall! We made it to the wellspring of wisdom! Yes! Oh, man. See, the wellspring is right under Mount Lanayru. But what's really weird about this, it's actually on the wrong side of the mountain. To match the spring of wisdom up top, which is quite odd. Maybe the water travels horizontally for a bit, or maybe this water is from snowmelt up above. But is the water drinkable here? Well, the water up on the surface we marked as green, and looking around here, we don't see any contaminants. Almost no plants, not much gloom, no monsters, and there's no Yiga clan members or their bananas. And lots of oxygen. Whoa, wait a second. Wait. Is this our first green rating? I think it is. I think this is a green. This water is drinkable. Holy potatoes. We actually found drinkable water in the depths. We did it, everyone.
Woo! Yeah, baby!
I mean, it's kind of a journey to go across the map just to get a drink, but we did it nonetheless. Yeah, with no contaminants and the water likely being filtered from the already wonderful source above, this water is perfectly okay to drink. Man, what a way to end Lanayru. Yeah, they had us in the first half, not gonna lie. I was really starting to lose hope that there would be any drinkable water down here. Oh, well, I doubt that this high will be long-lived, because up next is Necluda. And Necluda doesn't have much water to offer at all. And if our last videos have taught us anything about Necluda is not great. Down as far south and as east as we can reach on the map is the Crescia Pit Mine, and it's full of water. And also, it's surrounded by a field of gloom and monsters. Even if you could survive long enough to get here, it's a literal mine. Heavy metals, neurotoxins, DNA damage, and it's probably contaminated with salt water from above. So, it's a red rating. I mean, it's a red alert. Red alert over here. And unfortunately, the other pond nearby isn't much better. Man, Necluda really lived up to its bad reputation. It's all red here. I mean, it did only have like 2 sources of water, so actually, now I think about it, Necluda, don't get any more sources of water. Just don't. Next up, though, we have Farron. Now, in our last video, the waters of East Farron were clean and easily drinkable. So we came into here with high hopes. And at first, we were not disappointed. The first water we found was in the Spirit Temple. Even without waterfalls to keep things fresh, this water might actually be okay. It's inside and doesn't have any obvious contaminants. If you're struggling for a drink, there's a decent chance that this water wouldn't make you sick. So, we'll give this one a low green rating. Not as good as a waterfall, but a better bet than almost anything else that's been down here. Unfortunately, though, the next area doesn't look so good. The next pond we explored is the northern part of Farron, and at first, things looked pretty normal. Still water, clear of debris, more stalactites, which means more limestone, a few big fern trees nearby, and actually, this pond is pretty close to a light route, which gives us some UV decontamination. But then we heard flapping and squeaking, and then we saw them, a swarm of them. Geese. Go away. Bat guano is one of the most nutrient-rich natural materials on the planet. It's so packed with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that people have literally gone to war over it. Before synthetic fertilizers, bat and bird guano was basically white gold. Unlike cows, bats eat a high-protein diet, mostly insects, which are loaded with nitrogen. And on top of that, bats have an insanely fast metabolism to support flight. So they eat a lot, process it quickly, and drop their guano just as fast. Also, bat guano isn't diluted with water and plant fiber like typical manure. That makes the nutrients far more concentrated, which means that bat guano can have up to 10 times more nitrogen than cow manure. And phosphorus is a close second. In some kinds of aged guano piles, the phosphorus concentration can reach up to 20%. That concentration doesn't exist anywhere else in nature, other than maybe a phosphorus mine. All these concentrated nutrients fueled what was known as the guano mania of the 1800s. Demand was so high that it helped drive literal wars over guano-rich islands. Events like the Chincha Islands War in 1864 and the War of the Pacific in 1879 were centered on controlling valuable, nutrient-rich bird and bat droppings. And that's not all. The need for nutrient-rich fertilizers led to the Guano Islands Act of 1856. This U.S. federal law authorizes citizens to take possessions of unclaimed or uninhabited lands, or even rocks containing guano deposits. And this law is still active today. Wait, so I just need to find an island with guano on it and it's mine? Babe, get the raft! So what does that have to do with Hyrule? Well, they may not be bats exactly, but geese fly and probably eat bugs too. So we can be sure that the local area is flush with nutrients and delicious bacteria food. Combine that with no oxygenation, and this is a very, very red flag. As we moved south away from the Keys, we came across a huge lake, and I mean huge. In the dark, you can't see the other side, but after a survey of the shores and looking at the convenient in-game map, we determined that this is one of the biggest bodies of water in all of the depths. And that's actually key for water quality. With everything else being the same, large bodies of water are almost always cleaner and more stable. The biggest contributor here is dilution. If a single firefly dies and falls into a pond, the bacteria will swarm and immediately use up all the oxygen. But in a big lake, that same firefly will barely make an impact. The bacteria will show up for the feast, but there will be plenty of oxygen still left in the lake. Large lakes have even more pros for water quality. Larger bodies of water have more thermal mass. That means it can absorb more heat. So even if the cave gets hot, the water stays cool, and cold water holds more oxygen. Normally, all these pros might push a lake into green for us, especially since we don't see any dead plants or fish in the water. But of course, the Yiga just had to show up and ruin it for us. Another Yiga camp. Oh, and a monster camp too. So unfortunately, those two contributors are going to push this lake into a yellow rating. Man, there is so much water underneath Farron. I guess that makes sense since how much rain it gets. The next water we found was in the Construct Factory Lake. And this place is crazy. I mean, there is a lot going on. The first thing we see is the giant waterfalls, which is a good start. And the shallow aqueduct here would be good for disinfecting, if we were on the surface. But with no sunlight, the shallow running water really only gives us oxygen. And maybe the light route is helping, but that's a very recent addition. Thanks, Link. The problem is that oxygen only helps with bacterial problems, but most of the problems here aren't bacterial. I mean, it's a factory, so yeah, there may not be active fabrication going on right now, but almost surely in the past there was metal dust and heavy metals deposited in the water. And yeah, there's also giant lava flows in the left arm depot. And that's definitely giving off gases like sulfur and nitrogen oxides, which make the water acidic. But maybe if we get away from the lava, the other side of the lake would be okay? I mean, those waterfalls are probably making lots of underwater waves. So maybe this whole thing might be decently oxygenated. Well, maybe, but the other end of the lake has giant bones. I mean, look at this. A vertebral column and ribs from some massive ancient creature. And that could be a serious problem. If the bones are completely fossilized, it might be okay. But if there are any parts that aren't entirely stone, there could be still ancient bone marrow and collagen leaching into the water. This could be a constant source of available nitrogen and phosphorus to keep bacterial communities thriving. Sure, the oxygen would help clean things up, but that's only if the bacteria run out of food. If there's a continuous food source, then this is basically bacterial paradise. Ancient bones are making some other problems too. Bones are like chemical sponges. Throughout life, they soak up all kinds of heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and mercury. And as these ancient bones break down, they are leaching all those toxins right into the water. Red again. In a quest for a safe drink, we headed over to the Wellspring of Courage. All the well springs have had waterfalls so far. So come on, good water please! This waterfall is coming probably straight down from the Snake River up above, which was green in our last video. So we are starting off with good clean water and oxygenating the heck out of it. There are also not many plants or animals around to mess things up. So it's probably green, especially if you drink from the waterfall before it hits the pond. Assuming we ignore the Stalfos peeking out from the cave behind the waterfall. Woo! Finally a drink. My thirst be quenched! Wow, look at this map. The depths are not looking good. Maybe Central Hyrule will be a little bit better. But who are we kidding? Central Hyrule, at least up above and even down here, has a lot going on. It's probably gonna be all bad, isn't it? Time to find out. For science! Our first stop was the pond near Bloopy Barrow. Is that how you say that? Bloopy? Bloopy. Bluppy? Bloopy. I think it's Bloopy because it's Bloopy. And it's beautiful here. I would definitely spend some time reading under this cherry tree. Wait, a cherry tree? In the depths? Jeez, Hyrule is weird. And even weirder is somehow none of the petals and leaves seem to be falling into the water. But unless there is some invisible force field that's at play here, there are definitely plant parts in the water that we can't see, which is not great for water quality. In fact, this place is swarming with contaminants. And I don't just mean the Bloopy's Rupee Reprieve. Get it? Because every time you hit a Bloopy, a rupee comes out of them, so they're... You get it. The ground is covered in small plants that give off loads of white seeds or pollen every time Link takes a step. And there are tons of Stalfo monsters here too. In a small pond with no waterfalls, all the oxygen was probably gone ages ago. This is definitely not a good place to get a drink. Our next stop is, interestingly, two little ponds that sit on opposite sides of central Hyrule. So, what connects them? Well, I'm glad you asked, because we know how I feel about wells after the first video. Well. Both of these tiny ponds are at the bottom of wells, and they have fish in them. Now, it's hard to say how the fish got here. Maybe they were in the well above and fell down here after the depths opened up. Or maybe some Hylians thought it would be funny to throw fish down two completely separate wells. But interestingly, these are exactly the same kinds of glowing cavefish we see at the bottom of some other wells. So maybe they just traveled with the water through thousands of years of erosion. And if you watched our fish video, you know that we matched these guys to a lanternfish. Even though most cavefish don't glow, both cavefish and lanternfish are well adapted to live in the dark, low oxygen level environments. Which is great because ponds this small would definitely be low on oxygen. Most cavefish have evolved huge gills to help scrub every last bit of oxygen out of the water. They also don't move much, and that actually matches this game really well. The slow movement helps them reduce their metabolic needs, kind of like a bear hibernating for the winter. So it's possible that these fish are happily living in these tiny ponds, even if they did get thrown down here. Okay, but fish are bad for water quality, right? Well, maybe not. While they do contribute nitrogen through waste, they are also the janitors of the pond. Cavefish are opportunistic feeders. That means that they eat anything available, including dead plant matter, pond slime, and even mold. Their movement also helps stir the water, which adds oxygen back in. I wouldn't say that they make the water perfect, but they definitely help. So we're going to mark both of these ponds yellow. It's up to you if you want to drink the fishy water. And with that, there is only one notable bit of water left to explore. The Spring of Revival. This is the only spring in the depths that doesn't have a waterfall. And it is right under the Shrine of Resurrection where Link revived in the Breath of the Wild. But it has a few other tricks up its sleeves. Just like the hot springs in Goron City, this hot spring can heal you as well. Oh, what a perfect place to send an adventurer like me. But hold on. Just because something feels nice on your skin doesn't mean you should drink it. There are actually two types of hot springs on Earth: volcanic and geothermal. Now, we are theorizing that this is a volcanic hot spring, and that's because there is lava flow in the nearby central mine. So, how do volcanic hot springs work? Well, as water seeps down through the ground, it gets heated by shallow magma pockets underground. This superheats the water and can also release gases like carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide. Now, the water isn't actually hot enough to be boiling, which would be cooking Link like a stew rather than healing him. But it is hot enough to become a much more effective solvent. Think about making tea. Hot water pulls out the tea leaves way faster than cold water does. And that's the same idea here. As the water heats up underground, it dissolves more minerals from the surrounding rock. That means by the time it resurfaces, it can carry a mix of a dissolved limestone, minerals, and possibly heavy metals. It might feel warm and a little bubbly on your skin. Ooh, it's nice. And the extra calcium, magnesium, and potassium might even help your stomach, but I wouldn't advise drinking it much more than that. Many mineral springs are high in magnesium sulfate. These Epsom salts might be great for a bath, but drinking it can cause sudden, severe diarrhea. Also, the CO2 bubbling up from below makes the water dissolve more metals like arsenic and lead. Not exactly what I want on tap at the Goron bar. And with that, we are going to put the last marker on our map, a final red rating. But hey, it gets a green rating if you're just relaxing in it. Oh yeah, this is so nice. Wow, I think it's even making my lab coat smaller. Wow, would you look at that? Well, that's it. We've officially investigated all the waters of Hyrule. And, wow, that was a rough journey. We found some truly awful places. Well, mostly awful, but a few surprisingly drinkable ones too. And honestly, I think those wellspring waterfalls must have been purposely drilled from the surface just to get something even remotely drinkable down here. Maybe that was the only way the ancient Hyruleans could have water down here. But hey, let's check in on that poll from a few weeks ago and see what all of you thought was the best place to get a drink of water. All right, gonna go over these results now, see how you guys did. Don't worry, kitten, it's gonna be okay. I'm pretty sure they have it. They were really good last time. So, okay. Who said Eldon? Who picked Eldon? Why does Eldon have 9%? Did you not watch the first video? Eldon's horrible. Don't drink the water there. Although some of you made some really good comments in that video saying that like Gorons might not be drinking water at all, although they're organisms, so I have to have some sort of something, right? I feel like they probably drink some sort of water. They also have drinking vessels, but that aside, I think Eldon is probably not, don't go there. It's not good on the surface, and it's really not good in the depths either. And that's including the bit by the great, the great Hyrule Forest, the Lost Woods. That's not that good. I'm impressed by all of you because your guys are really good at deduction. Obviously, the 35% of you that watched the first video, you guys voted Hebra, and that's what I voted. My hypothesis was Hebra too. However, unfortunately, Hebra doesn't have any lakes. And it's really disappointing because it's a gigantic mountain and there's like nothing in the depths. Everything's above. So I don't know where all that ice is melting to. Well, I mean, if you watch rainfall, it's not, but you would think that there would be some water down below Hebra, but there's like none. There's one lake and the Yiga claimed it with their electricity. Now, those of you that said Lanayru, I think, look, you guys were spot on. Lanayru, home of the Zora, really good. That Lanayru spring on Lanayru Mountain, under the Lanayru Mountain, that was awesome. And then the interesting thing about that spring is it's so deep. It's really, really deep because like we were saying earlier, like the depths are like a mirrored version of the surface. So like if the mountain's really high, you're gonna have really low. And so like that water is like almost the very bottom of the depths. It's really, really interesting. But you guys did a great job. I mean, just great job. And those of you that chose Central Hyrule is not good. I don't know who's throwing fish down the well, but please stop. Okay, but what do you think about all this research? Which region has the best water in the depths? Is it the Wellspring of Courage? The fish ponds? Yeah. Or would you try drinking from the hot springs? Just if you do, maybe have a bathroom nearby if you're gonna try that TikTok challenge. Let us know down in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hype the video. check out our Discord and Patreon. And remember, stay hydrated out there. My name is MamaGoron. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.
Where have you been searching all along? Came facing twilight on and on, without a clue, without a sign, without grasping at the real question to be asked. Where have I been? I'm a shapeshifter at post masquerade, hiding both face and mind, all free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter, what else should I be? Please don't take off my mask, revealing dark. Moments of calm, nothing left to be found.
Oh man, that was a lot of work. This was a tough video. This was a tough one. I mean, there's no water anywhere. I can't even tell you how many times I took a swig of my own water. It really is like, you talk about being thirsty, you become thirsty. I mean, more so than just doing this. And it's funny, after like beating the game, there's like no Hyruleans down here. It's just Yiga clan members just flying around like crazy. In fact, now that I think about it, there's barely anybody in Hyrule. I mean, like, Hyrule is this big place, but there's like not a ton of people in it. I mean, even the Gorons have it kind of bad. I mean, I think they maybe have like 20 Gorons there. Oh, well, they kind of come from rock. And I mean, the Gerudos, they really have it bad. I mean, they don't even have dudes. They get one every so often, and he ends up trying to destroy the world. Which, I mean, it's so weird. Like, is Hyrule's population even, like, sustainable? Wait a second. That's it. Is Hyrule's population sustainable? I mean, we review the water. I mean, we've seen the food. And the air is... And the rain? Oh, and that's not even including, like, the monsters. Like, is Hyrule about to, like, not exist anymore? Well, someone better do that research. I better go tell Dr. MamaGoron.
I'm a shapeshifter at post masquerade, hiding both face and mind, all free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter, chained down to my core. Please don't take off my mask, my place to hide.